Hey Axis and Allies players, this is the Good Captain. Welcome to another video on Axis and Allies Classic. Today's video is going to be broken into two parts. It'll be one video, but we'll be discussing two separate topics essentially. The first part I call Know the Rules Part 2. Know the Rules Part 1 was the first pair of videos that I released on this YouTube channel over a year ago. And it wasn't intended to be in two parts like that, so sorry about that. My video editing skills weren't as tuned up at that time. But in the course of playing so many games, I've actually uncovered a few other small rules that aren't exactly obvious when you read through the game manual. So I figured I'd cover those at the beginning of this video, but since it would be relatively short, I had a few other things to discuss, and those are the free documents that I'm making available for download. They'll be linked in the description box below. Two of them are player aids, and the third one is something I'm going to have to get into more depth when we get into that part of this video. So put a bookmark in it. But we'll open with these rules. This is, again, I titled this Know the Rules Part 2, and I have to give a quick shout out to a member of AxisandAllies.org. He goes by Colonel or Cernal. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name. It's C-E-R-N-A-L. He is directly responsible for me incorporating the first two rules that I'm about to go over in this video. And so thank you for pointing these out to me. I hadn't run into these yet, and I probably would have played them wrong if I hadn't known. So thanks, Colonel, for pointing these out. Okay. So yeah, I've got a couple of examples set up here on the board. So we're going to zoom in on the east front here because that's where we're going to start. And I'm going to lay the groundwork for the situation. Let's just pull it back just a little bit. So we're only concerned about these four territories: Karelia, Eastern Europe, Ukraine, and the Caucasus. Okay, so just focus in this area here. So let's say it's Germany's combat move. They've already done all their purchases. They've got a substantial army in Eastern Europe. Russia has one in Karelia. However, the Ukraine is, though owned by the USSR, it's occupied only by one AA gun. On the German combat move, the German player does this. He moves into the Ukraine SSR and then states that he's going to blitz into the Caucasus. So my question to you is, can he do that? So we'll remove the... Can he do that? Give you a second to mull it over in your head. If you said no, he can't, you are wrong. And you are wrong only in this version of Axis and Allies. It's not this way in any other version, but it is clearly stated in the rules clarification that AA guns do not prevent a blitz. You'll see here, under miscellaneous, point number 2, a tank can blitz through a territory with an enemy AA gun and/or industrial complex on it. Such a territory is not considered enemy occupied. So that would be a legal move, and both territories would come under German control, including the AA gun. So let's reset this. Same situation. Because you might be scratching your head and wondering, what else does this affect? And that's a good question. So let's say the same situation, same setup, same everything, except we've added in an infantry into the Caucasus. So here we are. Let's do the exact same move. Tank blitzes into the Caucasus. We know we can do that. But now, if you're like me, you probably are thinking, how can I support this? Well, we've got two fighters here. 3-3 attackers should certainly dispose of that troop. So let's commit those. 1, 2. But wait! Wasn't this a Russian AA gun at the beginning of the turn? Yes, it was. So does it get to shoot at those aircraft as it flies over or not? I'll give another second for you to think about it on your own. Take a guess. The answer is yes, it does. And this is not directly stated in the rules. In fact, we had to have Krieghund, who is one of the rules gurus on AccessAndAllies.org and allegedly has a direct line to Larry Harris, weigh in on this. But he weighed in based on this rule from the rulebook. It's located on page 5, and it reads, "Combat is considered simultaneous." You can read more of it if you want, but just understand this is the key phrase. Combat is considered simultaneous. It might also be mentioned somewhere else in this game manual, but I found it here, so I'm posting it there. I'm also going to post links to Krieghund's weighing in on these forum threads for anybody who wants to see the full conversation. But yes, the Russians would be able to shoot at both those fighters as they flew over, because in this version of Axis and Allies, AA guns are always active, which means they can shoot at aircraft that fly over during the combat movement phase. The best way to visualize this is that the German tank or the anti-aircraft gun is shooting at the German fighters as it's being overrun by the German tank. Combat is considered simultaneous. Okay? The third and final know the rules for this video is going to be right down here. Let me pull it back just a little bit and we'll get this guy out of the way. Let's say that this is the situation. Same turn. Let's say it's the same turn. And the Germans decide that they want to secure the other side of the canal. And they move their infantry in during the combat movement phase. And during the combat phase, this goes to the Germans as there's no British to oppose them. It's the non-combat movement phase, and if you read the rules literally, straight across, there is some vagueness. Am I allowed to move my ships through the canal on the non-combat movement phase? The rules state that you only need to own both sides of the canal. Is this a legal move? Now that you've had a second to think about it, this is the most gray of gray areas, but again, those of us on the forum who inquired about this, Krieghund weighed in and was pretty confident in this answer that the intent of Larry Harris was always to have the Suez Canal mimic the exact rules of the Panama Canal, in that you have to own both sides, or you have to own the canal at the beginning of your turn to be able to move through it. And for those of you, again, I try not to just verbalize into a camera. I'm going to cite my source now. So if you accept what Krieghund said, the Panama rule states you can't attack from one sea zone to the other unless you or your allies control the Panama territory at the beginning of your turn. So this was meant to be incorporated into the Suez Canal rule as well, but it just wasn't. So this final one is one that I ran into twice in 2019 when I was playing my mini games on Play by Forum over AccessAndAllies.org. So that one we finally laid that to rest. So those are the three know the rules in this edition of Know the Rules for Axis and Allies Classic. I'm going to move now to part 2 in this video. So now I'm going to be going over the 2 free downloadable player aids for Axis and Allies Classic that I have uploaded to MediaFire and available for download through AccessAndAllies.org, linked in the description box below. And the first is a single-page Word document titled Axis and Allies Classic, 2nd edition, Not So Obvious Rules List. This is specifically geared towards 2 types of people. One, anybody who's played this game before, but it's been a long time. Or 2, someone who's never played Classic before, but maybe has played other versions of economy-based Axis and Allies games, and maybe read the manual but didn't realize these smaller rules. These are really easy to forget, but then they can come up and bite you in the butt later. So they're all compiled here now, and these are all things that I discussed in my videos, but the videos take longer than just looking at a sheet of paper, so they're here for quick reference. And the second document I have uploaded is
something that this I've done for Anniversary as well. Uh, there's actually a number of optional rules in most Axis and Allies games, and I just think it's extremely important for you and your opponent to just get on the right page in regards to these optional rules before starting it out. I feel really very strongly you should always have a discussion and just go through them one at a time. Okay, how do you feel about playing total victory or placing your naval units in an enemy-occupied sea zones? Uh, anyway, this is a self-referencing document that compiles all of the optional rules in Axis and Allies Classic onto one page, and you can just use a pen and circle yes, no, up and down. And number 7, strict neutrals, is not actually in the manual. I've imported this from other versions, every other version really, of Axis and Allies. It will not global, but Anniversary 1942. This is here for a specific reason. If you want to know more about it, it's asterisked at the bottom. If you still want to know more about it, you can check out my video or just peruse the forums and type in Spanish Harlem to understand this devastating strategy that is available to the Allies if they know about it. If they know about it, okay? And I'll close by saying this: that I, I just released a session report, and in that video, I think I announced I only used this optional rule right here, Russia restricted. I didn't use any others, but if you follow my channel, you know I believe very strongly that to truly balance the game, you need no new complexes and strict neutrals as well. And those are all articulated in my videos titled Is Axis and Allies Classic Balanced Part 2 and Part 3. But I played a guy, and this is why I asked my opponent his experience level. He hadn't played in a long time. Okay, I played many games, and I have a very confident understanding of Axis and Allies Classic, so I only asked for Rush Restricted. I probably could have twisted his arm and got what I wanted. Strict neutrals and no new complexes. But this is I'm going to, encourage sort of a certain way of being right now, I think. And what I mean to say is I really believe strongly that as an Axis and Allies player, you should always play the game as competitively as you can. If I'm playing a new guy, I'm not even going to ask for Russia restricted, okay? I want to be challenged every time I play, even if it's in a tournament. I want to be biting my nails. So, though I truly believe you need certain rules to truly balance the game, uh, I want to have a competitive game, and so I don't regret not using all 3 of those rules in my tournament game. And anyway, I would encourage you to consider what I said there in your future games. And the optional rules are a good way of sort of balancing it out or making it competitive for yourself. And the final downloadable is not a player aid. I titled this Hindsight 2020, Don Rae's Essays 20 Years After. And what this is in a nutshell is an edited down version of the original Don Rae essays. Now, why did I do this? Why did I tune up this guy's essays? Well, as many of you know, I released a video in my 10-part series telling you what I thought about these essays. And a surprising amount of people on the forums and on YouTube, I don't want to say defended Don Rae, but I think they were more or less defending the idea of being community contributors. Yes, his tactics and strategies and whatnot might be outdated, but he was trying to do a good thing. Okay, I grant that. But just to be sure, I should say, I went through, over the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, very slowly read through the entire essay one more time. And this monster is 90 pages. And it was extremely laborious. I switched it over here to show you my edits because I am a published author, and I'm only saying that because I couldn't help myself but just start to act as his editor. And I did it for my own sanity at the beginning, but by the time I got to the end, I realized I pretty much had a much improved document. Yes, you can see in essay number 1, I took quite a bit out. I promise you, I operated under the adage of only removing things that were braggadocious and not relevant to tactics or strategy, and that's what you see redded out here. Anything else was me making it readable. I mean, the sentences really are a word salad. And so I cleaned it up, and 90 pages became something like 63, excluding my introduction, my editorial introduction. And so that shows you how much non-Axis and Allies related tactic strategy talk there was in the thing. And so I standardized the fonts, I organized it in a better fashion. So it's really streamed, and I put an editorial note in there which you can read. It's at the very top of the essay when you download it. I did make editorial notes, comments, they're in blue. These are I only did whenever it seemed really pertinent or whenever the essays were just kind of off. So I very much kept it original, and where I intervened, it's clearly delineated. So you can still read the thing, and I still don't recommend you do it. I think the time it takes to read it, you could play an Axis and Allies game, and you'd learn more playing that game than reading this document. But if you'd like to read, I'd recommend reading essays 4 and 5 of this thing. It covers dead zones, it covers strafe attacks, it covers purchasing, and I think that's, you know, where this document is its most lukewarm. So that I leave to the community as well. So thank you for watching this. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.